What is going on YouTube? My name is Nevin the Barber, and in today's haircut tutorial we're going to be covering a mid-drop fade. So to get right into this video today, I'm going to be carving in my first bald line using my gamma hitters. And I do have these clippers right here zero gapped, so it's very easy for me to get the hair cut all the way down to the skin with these trimmers. And I'm not going to be taking all the hair off, we're going to be taking the bulk of the hair off at the end of the fade. So once we have our first guideline established with our trimmers, we can then get straight into the fade. So I'm giving myself about ½ an inch of a bald line just so I know my cutting space to work with before we get into the haircut. And then we're going to create our foundation with our Wahl 1919 anniversary seniors, starting with the number 1 guard all the way open. And I am bringing this guideline up about a little bit more than an inch, just because this is our foundation of the fade and we aren't going to be bringing our fade any higher than this number 1 guard. So for the second step in this guideline, I'm going to take my OsterFastFeeds with the lever all the way open. This is going to be cutting the hair at a 0.5 length. And as you guys can see, I went right in the middle of that first guideline we created with the number 1 guard. So with this process that I'm doing right here, we're basically going from the 0 to the 0.5 to the 1.5. And we're just going to be blending out our 2 guidelines. So with the first guideline, I'm just doing some lever play, shortening my cutting stroke with the OsterFastFeeds as I close the lever, just to knock out that skin line. And I do have these clippers right here zero gapped as well, so it's very easy for me to knock out my bottom skin line. And now that we have that first guideline blended out, we can get right into the next step with the ½ guard all the way open. And we're going to be repeating the same exact process, just doing some lever play, dispersing out that second line in this fade. And when you guys start with the lever all the way open, you want to flick up all the way to the ceiling of that first guideline you created. You don't want to go past it, just because that's going to defeat the purpose of the hair being cut at the 1.5. And as you close the lever, just be sure to shorten your cutting stroke, just because the hair is going to be getting cut at a little bit of a shorter length. So now that we have our 0 to the 1.5 blended in, we can begin blending our fade into the bulk of the hair. So I'm starting with my number 3 guard all the way open, just flicking out at all of that bulk. And same thing with the lever all the way closed. And now we're going to repeat the same steps with the number 2 guard all the way open, just flicking out at that parietal ridge, keeping some contrast and darkness in the top of the cut, but still blending the fade into it, giving it a nice clean transition. And now back down to my number 1 guard, just using the corner of my blade to flick out and blend the fade into the bulk of the hair. And as you guys can see, our fade is already almost complete with the simple system that we just used. Now back down to my ½ guard, just detailing out any last dark areas that I see before we move on to the other side. And it's very important that you guys go back and detail your fade, just to ensure all those little dark areas are blended in. And now just to blend our fade into the bulk of the hair, clearing up those last dark areas, I'm going to begin doing some trimmer over comb with my gamma trimmers. And I do highly recommend these trimmers right here. For anyone who wants to try them out, feel free to use my code NEVIN10 on the Gamma website. And now that we have our trimmer over comb done, we'll begin doing some shear over comb. Shear over comb is very, very good just for leaving the blend with a nice soft finish. So now that we have the right side complete, we're going to repeat the same exact steps on the left side, starting with our number 1 guard all the way open, creating our foundation in this haircut. And you guys want to make sure you give yourself enough space within this guideline, just so you can blend out the 0 to the 1.5. So going right up in the middle of that first guideline, I'm using my OsterFastFeeds with the lever all the way open. And with the same concept, we're just going to begin doing some lever play, flicking out at that bottom skin line. And always make sure to shorten your cutting stroke whenever you guys close the lever. Now that we have that bottom line blended out, we can get into our second guideline with the ½ guard. Same thing, starting with the lever all the way open, we're going to begin flicking out at the top of the ceiling of that guideline we created with the number 1 guard. And whenever I'm blending, I always just use the corner of my blade, just because me personally, I feel like it gives it a more detailed blend and cut rather than using the whole blade on the clipper. Keeping your guidelines very consistent on both sides, ensuring that it drops beneath the occipital bone, just because this is a mid-drop fade. And now that we have our 0 blended into the 1.5, we can begin blending the fade into the bulk of the hair. So I'm starting with the number 4 guard, flicking out above the parietal ridge of my client, just taking off some of that bulk. And now we're just gonna go from the 4 to the 3 to the 2, down to the 1.5, which is where we left off from our fade. Again, with the bigger guards, you still want to keep a consistent cutting stroke all the way throughout the canvas on your client's scalp. And now with my number 1 guard, I'm just going to be polishing this blend, finishing up this fade, blending the fade into the bulk of my client's hair. And as you guys can see, I'm brushing after every few cutting strokes, just to knock down all those little flyaways that might stick to my client's scalp. So whenever I get into the lineup on my clients, I always hit the little baby hairs with the number 1 guard, just to ensure that everything is laying down and it can come out nice and crispy when I go in with the trimmers. And as always, you guys want to make sure you keep your client's hairline as natural as possible. You never want to push their lines back, especially on the corners and on the box. Just look where their natural line grows in and simply tap and pull away from that line. And I did apply some semi-permanent enhancement on my client's hairline, just as his corners were a little bit light. And with the enhancements, you guys just want to make sure you apply them about 6 inches away. Now with my Barber Nova razor, we're going to go right in, hitting my client's hairline against the grain of the hair, giving it a nice crispy finish. And if you guys would like to purchase this razor right here, feel free to use my code NEVIN10 on the Barber Nova website. And now that we have our hairline finished, we can get into the fun part on this haircut, taking off all the bulk. So I'll be using my Gamma trimmers, just going with the grain of the hair, knocking off all the bulk. And after we take off all this hair, we'll just have to go back with our Gamma shaver, just to bald out all the rest of the hair, finishing up the fade. And with this method right here, I really like to use this method when I cut hair, just because you take your skin line out at the end of the haircut and you won't find yourself struggling within the middle of the haircut to knock out your skin line. So if any of you guys have a hard time knocking out that skin line within the middle of your cut, maybe you should try out this method. That way you can get your fade done before you actually knock down the bulk. And just to finish up this cut, balding the haircut down to the skin, I'm going to use my Gamma shavers. And then going back to my trimmers, just to make sure that I have that skin line knocked out, ensuring that everything is blurry and clean as possible. It's very important to go back and double check your work, ensuring that everything is blurry as possible and that all your lines are nice and blended out. And it's just little details like these that will take your guys' haircuts to the next level. So just be sure to master your system, and with time you guys will be able to execute any style haircut. Just be patient with your method and make sure you're going through all your steps, and you should be able to get a nice clean fade. And now, just to shorten the top of my client's hair, we're going to trim the top a little bit. So whenever I blend the top of my client's hair into the fade, for example my client right here who has a comb over, I always like to lay my fingers over their parietal ridge and just snip over all those extra hairs that are laying over it. That way when your client styles their hair, they won't have no extra hangovers laying into the fade, and it'll blend in nice and clean. And after I have those layovers cut, I just went back with my Barber Nova thinning shears, just to give this fade a nice clean finish, a nice soft finish into the bulk of the hair. And I personally think shears should be used in every haircut, just because, like I said, I feel like it gives the fade a nice soft finish to the top of the blend. And that is about it for today's haircut tutorial. If you guys learned anything, please be sure to drop a like and a comment. Also be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed already. If you guys learned anything, I would appreciate any feedback. And if you'd like to see a tutorial, just please let me know in the comments. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys for tuning in today. My name is Nevin the Barber, and I'm out.